Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the future of the water and wastewater industry and the careers you didn't know about. And I'm your host, Dave Kosminski, and we are here live at the annual conference and Technical Vendor Expo. And I have a new friend that is actually a very diverse part of the industry and something that we haven't had. But we have with us on this episode, ladies and gentlemen, is Lisa Baxter, and she is from the Diving Services Incorporated. Wow. So you guys dive in tanks and all that kind of good stuff?
Yep, tanks.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So now this is something that, again, from a standpoint of careers in the water industry, it's all part of that big umbrella of basically careers that are available, and so forth. So how did you get into diving? Do you dive yourself?
Yep, I do dive.
Oh, wow.
Most of my diving, though, does involve a plane.
Okay.
Going to warm water diving, no. Years ago, when we started the company, we incorporated in 2007. And my husband and I were both recreational divers at the time.
Uh-huh.
And we lived on our boat in Newport, Rhode Island.
Ah.
And so we were asked to do things occasionally like, look at a pile that maybe a boat had hit or something, or find somebody's watch that they had dropped into the water.
Okay. All right.
So we started just nights and weekends helping out the marina with things that they needed. My husband's a civil engineer, and again, we're both rescue divers and had been diving for many, many years, and it was a very easy transition for us to start doing commercial work nights and weekends. And before you knew it, I quit my job as a programmer, and he quit his job as a engineer for a company up in Massachusetts, and we incorporated, and we've never looked back since.
So you left the zeros and ones career.
I did. Yeah, I love my job. There's so much in the water industry that we learn every single day out on the job. Yeah.
Wow.
People don't know what's behind their tap water when they open up the faucet.
No joke. Well, and hence that's why I launched this podcast, because so many times, from a standpoint of careers in the water industry, I've been in the water industry. It's going to be coming up on 50 years, and I'm looking at retiring, and a lot of people are, in this industry. We got to start refilling the pipeline, or in your case, refilling the tank.
Right, right.
So forth. So, how did you segue in working with water utilities?
So I think one of the biggest ins that we got starting early was we originally started doing waterworks shows.
Okay.
We started very small with a couple of local companies up in Massachusetts that we were friends with through the industry that my husband had worked in.
Okay.
We were lucky enough to come in with a company who we met and worked with for many, many years before they were bought out. And it just opened the door for us. They were a tank company,
Okay.
Merrithew Tank,
Okay.
up out of Bridgewater, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And they had some engineering work that they had to do, so that's where Tim came into play. I actually went to Northeastern for engineering, but I only did a year or two.
Okay.
And then I stopped to have my kids, so we had a lot of the, and of course with being in diving, we had a lot of the foundation that we needed
Okay.
to do bigger jobs. And once we realized how much work the industry needed,
Yes.
we really started focusing on helping our customers from an engineering perspective. I had a lot of engineering skills. My dad was an engineer. My grandfather ran the town waterworks for 65 years.
Wow.
So we had so much information. We didn't realize how much
Knowledge
information
base.
we had. And so it was a very easy transition for us.
If somebody wanted to get into diving, again, I promote this podcast to high school seniors and college freshmen and so forth. And a lot of times when you're graduating high school, and I'm sure you experience the same thing, you don't know what you want to do.
Right.
Sometimes it's I don't want to say you're brainwashed, but it's kind of you got to go to college, and that's not necessarily true for everybody. Not
Right.
necessarily. So if somebody wanted to get into the industry, what would you recommend?
So we get a lot of our kids that come out of the dive schools across the country. They come out, they're probably, most of them are probably between 18 and 25.
Okay.
Most of them only come out with a high school education. We do have a lot of gentlemen that come to work for us who have been like former Navy or Army.
Okay.
But I think the one thing that we tell the kids when we hire them, I say kids, a lot younger than me, that there's more to diving than just putting on the hat and getting in the water. I mean, the learning from the engineering perspective to the operators that run the plants, there's so much to learn. I mean, I expect our kids to learn every day, but what helps them when they get a job in the industry is doing things like if they've done topside welding.
Okay.
Or if they've done anything with small equipment repair.
Yeah, yeah.
We have compressors and tens of pieces of equipment that are on the job site every day, understanding how an engine works.
Okay.
Anything that they can bring to the table
Okay.
along with the diving is helpful.
Sure.
Yeah.
And obviously, safety is a big part of that.
Safety is huge in our industry.
You know,
yes.
as far as you don't want to, jump in
Right.
the water.
Yeah, but a lot of it is common sense.
Oh,
You
well,
know, if you see something that looks wrong, it's probably wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so on a typical job, I mean, if you obviously you do a lot of tank inspections and so forth. What is the protocol? Do you have a tender and a diver, and so forth? Do you use tanks or compressors all the time?
Right.
or-
So every job is different.
Okay.
There's no canned answer for that. If it's an in-ground tank and the hatch is at the right size, three people is sufficient.
Okay.
If you have an elevated tank, you may have a tender, a secondary backup diver. Most of our dives that we do are shallow depth, long duration. So my guys dive anywhere from 3 to 5 or 6 hours a day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So for the most part, a tank, so the guys, what they have to know about the tank is that you have to be encapsulated. So they're wearing what is called a vulcanized rubber suit.
Okay.
So they never come in contact with the water,
Okay.
which is really important, obviously, for drinking water. And it's an OSHA ADCI standard.
A standard.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, safety is just one of those things you can never overlook. You know,
Okay.
you just have to pay attention to everything from where you're walking to the ladder to the ropes that are running to your umbilicals to our breathing compressors. There's just so much going on a dive site.
So from what I'm hearing, for the most part in tanks, they're tendered to a compressor rather than tanks.
Correct. They have bailout tanks, usually like 30 cubic feet
Okay.
of air
Yeah.
for them, just like a scuba tank.
A scuba tank, right?
Right, certified scuba tank. That is only to be used in the case that they have to abandon their dive for whatever reason.
Okay.
So we've had very few instances, honestly, only one I can think of in the last 17 years, but that the diver has had to disengage himself from the actual umbilical. So he's tethered back to me.
Okay.
So I'm the safety officer for the company. So it runs from his communications, the pneumofathometer that tells me how deep he is,
Uh-huh.
his airline, his
Okay.
communication line. So he has 5 different pieces of safety equipment that runs to him. So I can talk to him and see him, be in
And-
touch with him all the time.
Okay. Wow.
So the first thing that happens is if on a dive site, if I lose communication with the diver, he's got his cameras on, he gives me the okay sign in his hat that I know he's okay,
Yeah.
and he immediately comes back. We recall the diver immediately.
Okay.
So no communications, obviously that's immediate stop on the job.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's unbelievable. Obviously, do you get many female applicants for?
We've had one.
You've had one.
We've had one.
And it's not you.
No,
yeah,
it was not me. Yeah,
oh.
young girl out of New Jersey. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Nice. Nice.
Yeah,
And what attracted her to you, or you attracted her?
First of all, she's the only application we've ever had from a female. Yeah, and I know there's plenty of girls out there at the dive schools. We've had obviously employees from all over the country, the different dive schools, but she was the only one local
Uh-huh.
out of the New Jersey school, and she came and she worked a summer with us. But it's a very labor-intensive job.
Sure.
And I jokingly tell my guys that if I'm still moving at the end of the day at my age, that they should all be able to pull their own weight. And you have to be able to do that. Everything is very heavy. You have to be safety conscious when you're moving equipment. Just there's not really a lot of time for not paying attention.
So in your job, obviously, you're involved in tank cleaning.
Yep.
Okay. So do you use vacuums? How does that work?
We use divers, so they're not cleaned by machines. Some
No, no,
companies, yeah. So we use divers, and it's basically an enormous shop vac
Okay, yeah.
that takes the sediment out of the water. It passes through just a helix hose, a helical hose, and
Yep.
on the discharge end, it's almost something like a fire hose.
Okay.
Runs to either a discharge basin and begins. It's up to the customer, however he wants
Okay.
us to discharge
Yeah, yeah.
the sediment. Yeah, so that's all it is. It's a large shop vac.
Okay.
Different heads, just like the shop vac at home.
Okay. Just like
Whatever
vacuuming
works.
a pool.
That's right. Whatever works better. Some heads work better on concrete. Some work better on a
Sealed.
painted surface. Yeah,
Right.
whatever the texture is of the floor is kind of what we try to.
Nice, nice. I mean that one of the things when I first started, we have 2 tanks in Portland. We have a 1,000,000-gallon tank and we have a 500,000-gallon tank and so forth. And what we used to do is, obviously, we used to take one tank offline, okay, run it down, okay, and then get in there with a fire hose. And,
Right.
you're scrubbing the stuff down
Right.
and so forth. Then we had one tank basically become unusable, and we ended up tearing it down, and we were left with a 1,000,000-gallon tank. And so after that point, we were basically, had to get somebody to come in and clean it,
Sure.
while it's online.
Right.
But now we have another 500,000-gallon tank there, so, but, it's the type of thing. It's nice to have that redundancy, so.
Right. You don't want the municipality to be losing their water if they don't have to, and a lot of people never realized. And honestly, a diver cleaning the tank, it's much more. We can see and feel and do things that a piece of equipment can't do.
Right.
We can assess the tanks better than a piece of equipment. And
Yes.
it's just
Yes.
how it is.
Okay, all right. I don't know if you're familiar with Portland. We also have our brownstone quarries there, and one of the Haynes brothers runs. In fact,
No, I'm unfamiliar.
yeah, he used to run Scuba Shack, but they do dive training in our Portland quarries. In fact, he has the Connecticut State Police come in and they do driver training there and so forth. But
Right, yeah,
we have-
yeah.
It goes down. Well, the deepest part is about 90 feet to 100 feet, so you're down there with
Sure. Yeah.
very cold water. And so forth.
Yeah.
And big fish.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But I don't gather you see many fish in a tank.
Believe it or not, we have seen some fish that were not supposed to be where they were
No,
over
it's
the years. Oh yeah, yeah, we've seen some pretty crazy things.
Go figure.
Yep.
And so forth. So, if you were giving advice to a high school senior, college freshman, what would you say? As far as, to attract them.
Wow, that's a tough one. I guess no matter what job you're going out for, I think you have to be passionate about it, and you really have to enjoy what you're doing every day. On top of that, I guess you have to be willing to learn.
Yeah.
In this industry, there is so much out there. It's amazing. Again, I think it's one of the things that we probably all take for granted, but there is so much that goes into everything. That even when we have, towns that have boil water bans, I mean, there's things that happen, and we have to learn from those
Sure.
things, And it's so exciting that even, my kids and my grandchildren actually come to see me at work.
Oh.
Because we occasionally do things that most people will never get an opportunity to see.
Nice.
And those are the days that I want my 8-year-old granddaughter
Wow.
watching.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, I do a learn and earn program for the MDC every year, where we have basically, I think last year we had 8 students that we basically, Wes Winterbottom, who is from Gateway College, we do it together. So we give them 2 weeks of classroom work, and then we have, depending on their interest, they get embedded in the department. But I'd love to, sometime next summer, if you got a job in the area, I'd love to bring students out to see, what you guys do.
Oh, and I would really love that. I would really love that. We actually have some of our insurance folks throughout the years, excuse me, have been so interested in what we do. They've come out to
Sure.
the job sites.
Sure.
We pick a job that actually they can get close enough to see what we're doing.
Uh-huh.
They come into the trailer, they watch me, run the equipment and see the divers, real time doing their work on the monitors in the trailers. Get a little better understanding of what we do.
Sure.
From an insurance perspective, because there's not a lot of insurance people that write in the dive industry, so you're really very limited. So it helps our everything from general liability to all the other tens of insurances that we need to carry for the industry. It helps them to understand what we do better.
Exactly.
So anybody that can come out or wants to come out and see us, again, as long as the situation's right and the environment's right.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I will definitely
Okay, great.
give you a show.
Great.
So from, again, going back, you don't necessarily have to be a college graduate.
No.
You do have to have, I assume, a certification, correct?
Yes, the divers we hire,
Okay,
have to have they have to come from a commercial diving school.
Okay.
Correct.
And typically, are the types of certification, are they basically by depth, or is it by...
Nope. They all, I would say generically they have the same program in any of the dive schools. Some of them may have extra training. Some of them may do an underwater welding course on top of it. Some of them may certify them. Believe it or not, there's not a lot of, I don't think a lot of the kids that I've talked to over the years that come out of school, some of them have never even swam before.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we have had a couple of situations where we've had kids that come out who they didn't grow up around the water. They thought they wanted to dive and do all this. But, we are in situations where you are going to have currents, and you are going to have to be aware of the water environment.
Sure.
So some of that you can teach, but some of this is natural. Not
Experience it.
everybody is meant to be in that water for 8 hours a day.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
Yeah. You don't need a college degree, and like I said, almost none of the kids that come to us have a college degree. But you do have to be willing to learn. You have to have the aptitude. You have to want to do it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, obviously, on a personal, what do you like to do besides dive?
I am a dog mom. I'm a rescue mom for the Australian Shepherd
Really?
Rescue League. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, and the Border Collie. But we've had seven Australian Shepherds over the last 10 years that we've taken in from all over the country.
Wow, nice. We have a lady in Portland that has been involved with the water Newfies.
The Newfies.
She
beautiful
trains
breed.
those and so forth.
Mm.
They're big dogs.
Yeah. I don't know how people live without dogs. They're my life.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Well, fantastic.
Yep.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much
been
for
a
taking
pleasure.
time to coming up here out of the show.
You're
and
very welcome.
I know it's a unique industry, and it's a part of the water industry, and it gives our listeners a different perspective rather than just being a treatment plant operator or a distribution plant operator or whatever. So thank you so much.
All right, you're very welcome.
All righty. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode, of the future and of the water and wastewater industry and the careers you didn't know about. And this is definitely a career that you didn't know about. Ladies and gentlemen, on this segment, we have Miss Lisa Baxter from Diving Services Incorporated. Lisa, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you down on the show floor. Thank you.